Okay, thanks everybody for being here. We're really excited to share some of the insights that we've gotten from our mobile list builders really over the last 12 months and then what we're seeing so far in 2021. I'm going to jump right in because I know time is short for everybody. So just a really quick introduction. My name is Molly McFarland. I am one of the founders and also the CRO of AdAdapted. I'm going to give you just a little bit about us, but really most of this webinar is going to be focused on the data that we pull and some of the insights we're seeing. Just want to give you some context. Actually, before I dive into this, a little bit of housekeeping. The way that we're running this webinar is we're planning on answering questions at the end. So please feel free to add your questions into the Q&A function into Zoom. We will be monitoring those, and at the end, we will address as many as we can. Okay, so for those of you that don't know AdAdapted, I want to give you just a little history. We're headquartered in Ann Arbor. We're about 50 people now, and we have a presence across the country. We also have a patent on our frictionless add to list, add to cart technology. Even some of our own clients don't know that. That's a pretty recent event for us, but we're very, very excited about it. We work with top CPGs and retailers. I should note we only really work with CPGs and retailers. We're 100% focused. And the reason that they work with us is because we connect them to a very interesting, very valuable type of consumer that's hard to reach in other ways. And that's the mobile list builder. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So for those of you that know us, this will be a reintroduction. For those of you that don't know us very well, we're excited to introduce you to mobile list builders and really show you why they are such an important consumer segment. We're going to share with you what they have shown us over the last year. I don't think I've ever been as excited to sort of jump into our data and unpack some of the things that we were seeing as I have been over the last 12 months, because there have been so many questions and so many things that have changed. And a lot of the answers have really come out of watching how people plan to shop and shop. We'll show you some of that. And we'll also show you what we're seeing so far in 2021. So it's only been a couple of months, but we're already seeing some of the trends start to reveal themselves and let us know how people are shopping into this new year. Okay, so I can't really jump into the data that's coming from the mobile list builders without at least spending a minute or so on understanding who they are and sort of what makes them tick. So most Americans we know make some sort of grocery list before they go shopping. So traditionally this was done back of an envelope, pen and paper, but just like everything else, shoppers have started to migrate to their mobile device for the task. And I guess also like everything else, we're seeing more and more that people are using mobile apps, dedicated mobile apps, to keep track of what they're going to buy in store. So when we say mobile list builders, we are talking about anyone that uses their phone to build a shopping list. Some mobile list builders are using retailer apps. Retailers have definitely been talking about this a lot. They're really promoting their own apps, but we still see a lot of consumers using third-party apps. There's a lot of reasons for this. A lot of the third-party apps are made by developers that are 100% focused on user experience, 100% focused on making it very, very easy for people to build out a list, to share a list. And sometimes it's just more quick and convenient than having to go into a retailer app and pick out items by SKU. So it matches sort of normal list building behavior. And from these lists, we can glean a lot of information. So we can see what categories people are adding to their shopping list. Sometimes we see retailer affinity. We definitely see timing and shopping habits. So when do people build their list? When do people cross things off their list? How are they planning throughout the week? We also, applying third-party data to the data that we're collecting, can start to see trends about when people are planning and where. So we can see mobile list builders are building their list at home, at work, on the go, and of course in store. We aggregate all of our insights to sort of normalize it across our whole network of apps. So what you'll see is sort of a group of trends that our data science team makes sense of by looking across all these millions of list builders and all the different transactions and activity they have in their apps, and looking for the insights, the meaningful insights from those. What we do see too is lists tell us a lot about people, sort of what affinity they have, specific categories. And at a macro level, we can see what shoppers are planning on buying across the country. What this has helped us do is anticipate trends before sales data becomes available. The data that we're pulling is from about 30 different grocery apps across our private network. And again, this has been indexed. The charts that I'll show you have been indexed to sort of normalize the data across different shoppers. The data definitely reflects user behavior. So just want to give you a heads up that we're going to see branded and non-branded items that we're pulling from. So basically, however people jot things down, if they're writing cottage cheese instead of hood cottage cheese, or maybe some people write hood, some people just write cottage cheese. And what we're able to do is sort of, our data scientists can compile that data and see what category people are talking about, and really just found a way to make sense of all the different ways that people jot down what they're planning on buying. We're also going to be covering 2019, 2020, and 2021 are the years that we're sourcing from. And so that's enough setup. I feel like I've been really setting up the data for the last few minutes, but let's dive right in. Okay, so what we're going to do is start with ice cream. This is a really interesting one because it showcases the drastic changes that we saw when the pandemic rolled out. So last year, ice cream was really on something of a crazy ride. Starting in March 2020, as the shutdown started taking effect, we saw ice cream on grocery lists shoot up, way past anything that we had seen in 2019. At the time, we were really surprised by this. So yes, we knew that COVID was hitting. Yes, we knew that there were shutdowns across the country, but it was March, so it was still very cold in most places, at least that we're tracking. And we were also hearing things like birthday parties and barbecues and Easter, they're canceled, right? So people aren't getting together for those events. So we're looking at this data and we see this huge spike in March, and we're trying to make sense of what these mobile list builders are doing and what they're telling us. We quickly learned about the role of comfort foods in the pandemic. So it's pretty well documented now, but at the time, people were having trouble sort of wrapping their heads around what people were going to buy and how shopping habits would change. So it was really interesting to see that despite all the normal triggers that make ice cream shoot up, this time what we were seeing is it was shooting up because people wanted to find comfort from the groceries they were buying. This was backed up by sales data. So again, months later, after we had seen these trends playing out on lists, we get sales data that says, yes, people are buying more ice cream than ever before, and it's basically a comfort item. However, this is one of the products that as things, I guess, the new normal started to take place and people got more used to the situation that we were in, you started to see these graphs come together, and 2019 and 2020 started to look more similar to each other. Same sort of spikes around the holidays, but that's about it. And then as we look at the first part of 2021, we can see that at least the ice cream category seems to be going back to normal, and we predict that it will look closer to 2019 as the rest of the year plays out. Following the same trends of elevated levels on lists, we see the items that people usually buy at restaurants. So we have, 50 of these categories that we sort of look through, and they all sort of match the items that we're showing here as representation. So tortillas, chicken nuggets, chicken strips, these are things a lot of times that people are going out to restaurants and buying when they're out versus bringing home. And in these graphs, we can see that as the pandemic hit, people sort of switched where they were buying these items, and we saw a big increase with people buying these in stores versus the restaurants that they normally go to. And we continue to see these trends play out in 2021. So we're going into the year with higher levels than normal. You can kind of see here that the levels we see now match the levels that we jumped to when the pandemic started rolling out. These will be some of the categories that we continue to watch as this year rolls out, as we get further into the year, because they're indicators of what is happening. As people start to go back to restaurants in earnest, we expect to see drops and these items to start going back into more 2019 levels. But for right now, it's pretty strong. We don't see that happening. And so we're figuring people are going to continue to buy these items at the grocery store. Same with sparkling water, so often seen as a soda replacement, following similar trends to what we've seen in the past couple of years. So higher presence on lists during the summer months. It still continued this year, even though in total, the product was elevated over the 2019. So same trend line, but elevated levels. Sparkling water was also sort of riding a wave too, even pre-pandemic, of becoming more popular. People were buying this item anyway, and you can tell that the pandemic sort of gave it an extra boost, people buying it even more. In 2021, just looking at what we're seeing so far, it looks like this is going to continue to be the trend. So again, we're gonna be watching this one to see if it changes as people go back to restaurants. But right now, all indication is that list builders are going to keep putting this on their list. They're going to continue to buy sparkling water in grocery stores, and that will remain no matter if people are going to restaurants or staying with their in-store shopping habits. Oh, still getting used to the animation. Sorry. You're going to see this as a trend. So one thing that we've been really focused on in the last year is comparing what we see with our list builders to what's actually happening in store. And that's been really fun too. So every time you see Kroger or Walmart or Nielsen or other third-party aggregators of sales data come out with information about how products are sold, almost always we can match that up directly with what we saw 2 months before and the trends that we're seeing with list builders. So been a really fun sort of way to validate the data that we're getting. Okay, so let's shift gears now because it's been a pretty rosy picture for the most part, but not all categories and products are seeing increases, of course. Well, consumers have to eat. They definitely don't have to look great while they're doing it. And I think people started realizing that right away. So the graphs we're showing here are lotion and makeup, and both of them plummeted during the shutdown. It makes sense. So we saw right away that people no longer have to go out. That was, the first big thing, or the first big sign when the pandemic rolled out that everything was changing. It also means you don't have to impress clients or colleagues or dates or friends or even strangers. So right away, especially that makeup line, it just hit the floor. And the trend continues, right? So one, we see the sales data coming in say, yes, we see this big drop. And then two, we can see that as we go into 2021, those levels have stayed really low compared to what we've seen in previous years. Now, another thing that we wanted to point out is, people buying less of these items because they're not partaking in normal activities is half the story. The other half is where they're shopping. So a 17% decrease. Yes, we definitely saw a big decrease, but ours was actually much more drastic. And what we think is happening, or what our data scientists believe is happening, is not only are people buying less of these items, but they're specifically buying less of these items in grocery stores. These lists are usually reflecting in-store lists. So people are still going to the store, they're still buying things like yogurt and produce and milk. But the planned items, or the low replenishment cycle, the things that you don't need right away, you definitely don't need every week, non-perishables, we see that some people want to keep their grocery trips short by instead moving these items to an e-com shopping experience. From what we're seeing in 2021 so far, we believe that this will continue, and you're going to continue to see people buying less of these. We're hoping to see that it goes up a little bit as people return to their normal activities, but we still think that e-com is going to get a big boost around these non-perishable items. On-the-go items took a huge hit as well. So similar to beauty, similar to things that you need when you're going out. Bars, which represent granola bars and protein bars, and gum are both items that we associate with people on the go, running errands, going places. Granola bars often are a snack food that moms are buying for their kids. Moms and dads are buying for their kids when they're going to school. And so it shouldn't be that surprising, looking at everything that we've been analyzing, that both of these saw big drops as soon as the pandemic hit. And neither really recovered. So the bar graph, you can see, has stayed under the 2019 levels throughout the year and continues to stay lower. Gum as well also has stayed very low. Gum is not something that we see a ton of on lists anyway, because they're usually an impulse item and not necessarily a planned purchase, but they are indicative of an overall trend. And that is, people are just not buying as much because they don't need to. They're not going as many places. Okay, we have just a couple more, and then we'll talk about some actionable insights or some of the things that we're hearing from marketers. This one was kind of interesting to us, a little bit more complicated, but basically, what happened to dog and cat food during the pandemic? So people didn't get rid of pets. It's actually well documented that people actually bought more pets during the pandemic because you're home a lot, you can spend time. You want companions when your friends can't come over. But yet we see something really interesting happening with list builders and how they're planning on buying food for their furry friends. In this case, right after the pandemic hit, we saw this huge spike in people going out and buying food for their pets. From what we've seen, people were really worried that these food items would not be available. And so they wanted to make sure that they bought as much as they could in their trip, basically stockpiling it and bringing a lot home to make sure that they could feed their pets no matter what happened. After that stockpiling behavior happens, we see a big drop. We see that it never, hits the 2020 levels, never hit 2019 levels after that, basically throughout the whole year. We see similar trend lines in terms of, different special events, holiday trends, going up and down. But again, it's never matching 2019 levels. From everything that we've read and everything that we've compared to third-party data, it looks like something similar is happening that we just described with makeup. That these are products that people can buy online. These are things that you can plan a little bit ahead. You don't need it in your weekly grocery trip. So consumers are using these offline lists to buy the things that they need every week, and they're turning to e-com to buy the items that might slow them down in store. Therefore, we still expect these to stay lower. It'll probably not go back to 2019 levels. Because there'll always be that e-com component, but we do expect the blue line to go up a little bit as people feel safer, as people don't mind perusing the aisles a little bit more and are spending more time in the grocery store. And that will be similar with some of the other items that people were stockpiling and buying online, including Kleenex and toilet paper. I'm not going to talk a lot about this. We talked a ton about this March last year because I think everybody was really interested in what was happening with paper. But now maybe it's been a little overdone. We've talked about it a lot. Happy to give you more insights if you'd want to dive into any of these categories after the fact. Okay. So some of the big questions that we get when we're talking about our data and we're talking to our clients is what's going to happen? What's going to happen next, right? On a high level, what can we expect for 2021? So let's talk a little bit, because we touched on this on our graphs. Let's talk about e-com versus in-store shopping. We think a lot about this because we've seen some of these trends play out in the list data that we're grabbing. So a couple of things that we see. 78%, sorry, of shoppers do plan to shop in store more after the pandemic. So as things become safer, as they feel good about going back into the aisles, we do expect them to be shopping more. It's clear though to see that e-com is going to remain a powerful presence in our lives, probably forever. I mean, their growth has been explosive over the last couple of years. I think it was something like a 30% increase last year. So we're not expecting that to go away, but we are seeing that it's not a perfect solution for everybody. So there's a lot of people that used it not because they enjoyed the convenience, but because it was the only alternative to an activity that they deemed unsafe. So we think that there'll be some sort of meeting in the middle where people are starting to go back into store, still shopping online, but maybe shopping online a little bit less as they return to grocery. We're also starting to see a new type of shopper, which is the hybrid shopper. So I think everybody at the beginning of the pandemic was predicting, people are going to move over to click and collect and delivery, and that's going to be how they shop. What we're really seeing and what we saw with the list that we just showed you is people are going to start buying some things online, and they'll always buy things online, and they're still going to go in store for other things. They still like the experience of picking out certain items. So we're watching our list to see that split and seeing how mobile list builders sort of change what they buy and when, and making sense of what products to advertise with the goal of getting on different types of lists. And then finally, less shopping overall. So we've been asked a lot about this. We've talked to our retailer friends and CPG friends, but the feeling seems to be there's no way around some hit to just shopping in general, whether it's e-com or actually in-store shopping. And that's just because when restaurants come back online and when people are going out and they're on the go, naturally, they're just going to need less items at home. Some other habits that we think that are temporary. So we've talked a lot about this internally. We've looked at our lists a lot, but we do believe that convenience on the go and beauty products will start selling more. We're already seeing just a few clues like that in some of the data across all of these different categories. But as people start heading out and about and they're in front of people, or they're just moving around faster or traveling more, you can start to see some of these items come back online. We do expect that the national obsession of cooking will dampen a little bit. What is interesting is we think that especially some younger people that learned how to bake during the pandemic and really sort of fell in love with the process of cooking, those are probably lifers. Their habits will probably change forever. We're sort of wrapping our heads around what their lists look like versus what the 20-somethings lists looked like a few years ago. So there will be some long-lasting habits there. However, on a macro level, on our high level, we think the overall population of list builders will shift a little bit to convenience and likely cook a little bit less at home. And then lastly, what are the things that are here to stay? So in a recent study that we saw, 60% of consumers said that they tried something new and they plan to stick with it post-pandemic. Another study went a little bit further and they said 62% of people have changed their brand preferences over the course of this pandemic. And we think that they'll continue to change their preferences as we go into 2021. So people tried new things when their behavior shifted. Some of those will stay. People will stick with some of those items. However, as the shift happens again, and they start either going back in store, there's new things on the shelves, there's new products that they hadn't seen before, we expect there to be another sort of big jump into trial as well. So I think there's a lot that's going to be shaken up. We're going to look at our list for new brands, new trends sort of popping up. Really interesting time for marketers and advertisers to think about how to get into these new baskets. So just a time check. It looks like we're almost out of time. So I'm going to just go through these really quick, just in case there's any questions at the end. But one quick thing that we've been doing AdAdapted has been so focused on not just setting our own list, but asking marketers what they're focused on for 2021. Supporting that effort, one of the things that we did is work with a third-party research consultant to go out there and interview over 200 CPG marketing leaders. Separate from us asking the questions, this was the research group's questions, but really learning about the things that they cared about and some of the things that they predict will change in their spend over the next 12 months. Really quickly, some of the things that haven't changed, awareness is still a huge place that budgets are going. However, a lot of the marketers answered that they still don't have a great way to measure it. Separately, we see that brands are saying, hey, especially as things are changing and the buyer's journey is changing pretty drastically, we want to be there when consumers are planning their purchases at the point that they're making their shopping lists. Most people agreed with a statement like this, but most also said that it's really hard to do. And then finally, and I hope that you guys came to the same conclusion, I think marketers are starting to wake up to the idea that these mobile list builders are not only an important place to get insights and trends, but they're also just a really important group to get in front of. These are people that are putting things on a list that drive what they're going to buy in store and now e-com. So a lot of marketers are saying, whatever list that is, wherever they are writing down the things that they want to buy, we want to be there. And that's going to become a main goal for us in 2021 to really sort of weather some of the changes that are coming. And that's it, you guys. So thank you for sticking with me. I hope that everybody learned something, but would love to answer any questions if anybody has any questions for me. I don't see any questions popping up. All right, guys. Well, then I think we can get out of here right on time. So what we will do is, and I have Jesse in the room, we will send this out as a recording to everybody that joined. So give us, I don't know, 24 to 48 hours. We will turn this into a video. So feel free to refer to that. And then please let us know if there's anything that we could dive in. We love to go into specific products, specific strategies, and show you how mobile list builders could help you. So yeah, we're looking forward to talking to people, and thank you again. Reach out anytime. All right, thank you.